and we had to hear the stories for ourselves. And I noticed how much period affects girls and their education. Since then, I've been very passionate about ending period poverty in Ghana, especially helping girls to stay in school while they're in their period.
Thank you so much. And then lastly, Ebenezer, do you mind also sharing with us a little bit about your background as well?
Okay, thank you. My name is Ebenezer Obeng-Akrofi. I'm based in Ghana, and I work as the country representative for an organization called the Center for the Promotion of Human Rights and Development in Africa. So we work across various African countries, including Cameroon, Mali, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, on issues around countering violence, extremism, building capacity, and then sometimes we work on issues around youth and then employment as well. So I work as the country rep here in Ghana, where I lead projects that are implemented within the country. So basically for me, my entire career has been in the area of project management and then research. For a very long time, I was more in the area of democracy, elections, and governance, but with a focus more on building grassroots participation and then providing, advocacy support to my organization. So my contact with period poverty is more of personal experiences with colleagues and then friends who told me some stories like that. So I think along the line, I kind of developed some level of interest, particularly because all my siblings are girls, although they are older. But I mean, growing up, I saw what happened and all that, and even observed it in my own class growing up. So I think being someone who works in the area of advocacy, it is quite important that I also add my voice to this very important issue. So this evening, I think I'll share a few insights and then we see where we can take the conversation to. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now we're going to just do a little bit more of an in-depth within each of your organizations and your connection to the topic of period poverty and education. So Samuel, what made you motivated to start Umbrella for the African Child?
Okay. So Umbrella for the African Child, it was formerly called Umbrella Ghana. I started it when I was in university. The idea for Umbrella Ghana then was to educate university students to take pride in being African. Because I went to a school that is culturally diverse. We had students from Kenya, Mali, Gabon, Nigeria, and there was no student organization on campus that actually brings this student under one umbrella where we talk about Africa and the way forward for Africa. And that was where the idea came about, and Umbrella Ghana came into existence to educate more university students to take pride in being African. It was not until in 20. Can you guys hear me? Because I see someone just posted on the.
Yes, I can hear you. I don't know if everybody else can.
I can.
Okay. So I can continue, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it was not until in 2019 when I came back to Nigeria, and I grew up in Ajegunle, right? I was born in Ajegunle, and if you don't know Ajegunle, you can, after this webinar, you can go to Google and then search Ajegunle. Now, Ajegunle is one of the rough communities in Lagos State, but it's my community, and I love Ajegunle. But when I came back to Ajegunle in 2019, I saw that a lot of things had changed when it comes to children. and I saw kids, involved in all sorts of crimes, smoking at the age of 13, 14. It was like the crime in the community was becoming rampant. And I realized that there was no mentor, that the community lacked mentor. There was no mentor that can actually change the mindset of these kids. And that was where we started our Jubilee Community Project to educate teenagers as regards to, becoming good citizen, becoming good people in the community that can actually help the community grow. And then in 2020, we changed the name officially from Umbrella Ghana, because when I came back to Ghana, I was using the name Umbrella. Sorry, when I came back to Nigeria, I was using the name Umbrella Ghana to attend different programs or to organize different programs. And I saw that it was becoming an issue between the local government in Nigeria. And that was when we changed the name to Umbrella for the African Child. And the idea was to now mentor kids, provide children with the right resources for them to grow and for them to thrive. And I will continue this conversation, but I will not make justice to it if I don't say that, with the backing of amazing people that have been supporting this organization, we've been able to do exceptionally well when it comes to providing educational resources for kids, when it comes to, making sure that we have inclusive education in remote communities, and also ensure that kids are supported with mentors, because that's what they need in these communities. And UTAC, we are providing them with good mentorship. And the amazing thing about UTAC is that most of the people that work with UTAC are also from Ajubile. And these are people who have gone to do amazing things, and they are now working with the organization to support not just children, but we also have different programs too that touch different places as well. So I believe as I continue the conversation, I have a team here who is also going to chip in after me. So I'm not the only one talking. And her name is Precious. She's here, so she's gonna chip in one or two things. So I won't just be talking because I have people here as well. So that's basically the whole idea for Umbrella for the African Child, to mentor, provide resources for children to thrive in remote African communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, for Lady Juliet, what motivated you to work with Girl Up Ghana or start Girl Up Ghana as a leader?
Yeah, or I think initially my network was messing up, so I couldn't really get much from Kwame's submission. So personally, since my tertiary days, I've been very active with women and girls empowerment and activism. I was the women's commissioner for my residence hall in Ken University, and then became women's commissioner for my college, which was the largest college in school. So, but also that I met someone who mentioned, the person just mentioned Girl Up, and as at that time I was so much into women's advocacy, going up and down, and at that time I was also the PRO to the South Women's Commission, and we had formed a team that was advocating for an introduction and the implementation of an anti-sexual harassment policy in the school because there was none. So whilst I did, I just heard of Girl Up and I searched them up on the internet, and I felt like, no, I think this is for me. I really want to be a part of this. So I just inquired more about it, signed up, started a Girl Up club, Girl Up University on campus, and fast forward, after school I got opportunity to attend the ICDPD conference in Kenya. I met the Girl Up global team, and fast forward in 2020 I applied and became the regional leader for Girl Up in Ghana. So my main motivation was to get a platform to amplify women voices, to empower a lot of young ladies, because I was born and bred in a Zungo community where you hardly find a woman doing something for herself. I mean, if you would ask me who was your mentor while I was growing up, I may just say my mom, because there is barely no one to look up to. I mean, you think of an educated person and you can't find any. Even you can't even find a JHS graduate. So, it was just basically women are trained to marry, give birth, take care of their children, and do nothing productive. And I just felt the need to do something more. I just felt like women could do more. And once going to school, transitioning from JHS to SHS, going to the university, I met different kind of people, met various kind of women, different kind of mothers, and realized that women can also do something. I mean, there are women doing something out there, so I can also do it. So I need to empower myself, and as I've empowered myself, I need to also give the same platform, or give the same message out there to those people like me, or those also in backgrounds that seem that they don't have anything to look up to empower themselves, or anything that makes their dreams valid. So that was basically it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And then lastly, Ebenezer, what motivated you to write an article about period poverty within Ghana?
Okay, I think for me, it's I'm more of a social researcher, and so I write for this organization called Africa Blogging, which is a continent-wide network of seasoned journalists and the media practitioners. So often, from time to time, I put in articles that revolve around various social and political issues. Now, for the period poverty, I think I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who has sort of this foundation, or more, it's not even a foundation, but she just every now and then organizes and gets, sanitary items and visits schools in very remote communities and donates these items to them and then give them some kind of education. So during one of our conversations, and she talking about the issues that these girls face, especially at that young age, it just occurred to me that, hey, I mean, I am somebody who works in research, and I'm part of a network that is able to put out information that has a very wide audience. And so it will be a step in the right direction to look more into the issues, especially in Ghana, and then put out something. I mean, for all intents and purposes, even though we can't do much, it is always important to do the little that you can, because if each and every one of us contributes their voice to all the societal issues, I think we will have a resolution. So that was more or less my motivation for writing that. And then digging into the issues and uncovering some of the very unfortunate issues that are prevalent there. I think it just sort of motivated me. And then I sat down one evening and then just put together this article. And so I think from then, I have had a few people reaching out to speak more on the issue, especially because I think somewhere in the article, which was very fascinating to a lot of people, is the classification of sanitary items under luxury goods. And so I think that is one of the issues where a lot of people who had read the article found very intriguing and surprising. And so the conversation has just been one after the other since then. So I think coming on board, it's more of how I learned my voice, my expertise to drive this campaign. So I think with the collaboration of the team, we can have that level of impact that we are looking out for. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to be moving on to more of the period poverty and its effects on education. So I want to open this question up to either Precious or Samuel. What obstacles have been obstructing schoolgirls' access to menstrual hygiene products?
Okay. I will let Precious handle that one. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. Okay, please can you ask your question again because I had a little.
Yes. So the question
Hello, can
is,
anyone hear me?
yes, we can hear you. The question was, how does period poverty affect education among schoolgirls in Ghana?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
From the topic period poverty, first of all, I didn't mean to understand the what period poverty means. It refers to lack of access to menstrual hygiene and facilities, especially from girls in marginalized area. So those girls being living in marginalized area, I mean, some of them because they lack access to um, period menstrual hygiene facilities and sanitary pads, it affects them because I mean when they are not able to become who they are fully in this society. It has lots of effect on them that even mentally they can't even associate. They can't. It causes this low self-esteem in them. And so the correlation between the period poverty and education simply means some of them because they don't even have an idea of what to do when they are in that state. They don't know what to do. They don't because they don't have access to good water or how to practice good hygiene or good sanitary parts or even how to dispose of it. It keeps them to stay on their own and preventing them from going out to learn or from going out to associate with any other person out there. So educating them or sensitizing them or what to do during that period, during that time of the month is something that is really important. And I can say this is a very huge issue topic that the public health have neglected for a long time. So this is something that is just huge that if there can be a sensitization on girls that are living in marginalized area, educating them on what they can do in a particular period of the month when their periods are coming, or even giving them equal access to menstrual hygiene products, I believe is really going to elevate this poverty amongst them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Precious, for sharing that. That was very impactful. So leading from that question, there was talk about like the self-esteem and like stigma surrounding menstruation. So Lady Juliet, this question is for you. How do you think like the stigma around menstruation among schoolgirls in Ghana affects young individuals? And have you seen that affect their emotional well-being and their mental health?
So I think it boils down to lack of education on period menstruation, as Precious hinted earlier. It really does affect their mental health and their productivity in school. And sometimes when you read the figures online and how much it affects them, you tend to feel that this is being exaggerated or this is not real until you go to the various schools and then you start interacting with these girls, and some of them ask to see you one on one, and then they start pouring out to you, and you realize how real or how serious this issue is. So the thing is that most of these girls find themselves with parents who do not educate them on menstruation until they menstruate. Some of them only hear of menstruation when they are in the classroom, and then they are it's time for reproductive health and they mention it, but they've not really had the opportunity to sit down with their parents to discuss that you're going to menstruate. It's not bad, it's normal. When it's time for you to menstruate, use a pad, use this, do that. Most of them do not have the opportunity to have such conversation, so they enter this period with zero knowledge on it. And then also they get to the stage where they know that, okay, so I'm supposed to use a pad, but there's the parents, teachers, everyone, mostly we don't create an environment when where girls will be free to share how they actually feel. Mostly you realize that when people are talking about menstruation, it's just about being hygienic, wash your panties, change your pads, and all of those stuff. But you rarely find people talking about the other factors that women really face when they are in that time of the month. It goes beyond seeing blood, and this is something that I always mention during every keeper in school outreach, that it goes beyond seeing your blood. It's where you don't feel yourself, the mood swings, the emotional turnovers that you have, the mental stress where you can't seem to contain yourself. And then this is where they are young and they are new to some of these things, and some of them can't even tell what's happening to them, and they can't even attribute this to the fact that they are menstruating. So this really affects them. It gets to the point where they feel there is something wrong with me, and they don't even know how to express it. They don't even know who to confide in. They don't even know who to talk to. And this really affects them in their studies, because a girl stains herself and she's being mocked. The next minute she feels that, okay, so to avoid this during my period, I'm not going to go to school, or if I can't dodge going to school, then I'm going to go to school, but I'm just going to loiter around. I'm not going to stay in class. I'm in class, but I don't feel so confident to get up. What if I stain myself? What if people realize that I'm menstruating? Like they feel that it's a taboo. They feel that they're doing something that is so extraordinary, something that has not happened before. And I think it's about time we really speak about it. And I've always said that whenever we are talking about menstruation, it is very right that we don't tell the guys to excuse, we don't excuse the guys, we don't tell the boys that this is not about you, so please leave. Because most of the time, some of these mockery season is perpetrated by the boys, and that's how come the girls feel shy. It's perpetrated by the boys against the girls who are menstruating or who stain themselves. So I always say that there is a need for us to include the boys, to make them understand that this is normal, this part of poverty. Every girl go through that. Your mother went through that, and every girl is going to go through that. If they don't go through that, then that means they are not girls, so there's something wrong with them biologically. So every girl is going to go through that, and they need your support at this moment in their life than your mockery or whatever. If you feel that they've seen themselves, this is the right way to go about them. Don't mock them. It affects them. It does this, it does that. I feel there's that need for them to speak about it, because it really do affect them. And I don't even know how to emphasize on that enough. It really do affect them. In January, we had the keeper in school outreach at AJMA Primary and JHS in Kumasi, and we had a lot of the girls coming up to talk about it. I remember one of the girls coming up confidently to say that there was a time that she stained herself, and that was actually her first time menstruating, and she didn't know. It just came in class, and then the first person, it was in class, the first person who saw it just shouted that there is blood in there, somewhere running, and then those of the elderly ones who knew it was menstruation also started laughing at her, and she had no idea what it was. So she had to go to see her teacher, and instead of her to be educated, the teacher ended up beating her in front of the class or being dirty, while she doesn't even know what is happening to her. So I think there is a need for us to really sit girls down and educate them on that, because imagine this girl throughout that week in class, her confidence, her self-esteem, everything is just down to zero. Even if there's a class discussion, she doesn't really feel a part of it. There is that low confidence. She feels that I don't belong here. She can't even put herself together to answer a question or to even pay attention. She's thinking of whatever that happened, and we don't even have these mechanisms in place for these girls to open up, for these issues to be addressed. So it really does affect them, and I'm hoping that moving forward or through this conversation, all of us can come together to find solutions and ways we can support to reduce, if not to entirely eliminate, to reduce the stigma attached to period, to menstruation, and then also to put in the right mechanisms for girls to receive the mental and emotional support that they need to thrive when they are in this time of the month.
Thank you so much, Lady Juliet, for sharing that. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why we're having this webinar, just to be able to have this dialogue regarding the stigma that surrounds menstrual hygiene and menstruation and period poverty. So going along that question, Ebenezer, this question is for you. Can you speak about like the impacts of the period tax? As you mentioned earlier, how period products are classified as luxury goods, and how do you see the Ghanaian government, have they implemented any plans or any public health solutions to try to mitigate period poverty?
Okay, so yes, with that, I think for most people, I mean, based in Ghana, they are aware of what has been known as the period tax, but basically it is 20% import tax on sanitary items with an additional 12 value added tax. Now, the issue with the whole thing is that the sanitary items has been put under the classification of luxury item, hence the subject to that import levy and then the VAT. So this makes it more difficult for girls and women to access menstrual hygiene products. And I think just recently, fortunately, there has been a private member's bill by one member of parliament to remove the import tax on the sanitary items, which is quite commendable. So what we have at the moment is that the bill has been submitted to Parliament, and per the parliamentary processes, it will go through the various stages of first reading, second reading, and then a decision will be taken on that. So hopefully what we are looking at is to intensify the advocacy on the removal of the import levy on these items. Now, the debate or the conversation around this import tax is that a lot of the sanitary items are imported, as we are aware. And so that is just to discourage the import of the sanitary items and then encourage local production. But what we see is rather the opposite, because although there is this import tax, the importers are able to bring in their goods as at when they want, evading taxes almost every other time. But when it comes onto the market, it is very expensive for the women and girls to purchase. And moving forward, MPs in Parliament, but unfortunately it wasn't. But there's an expectation that they would put their weight behind the gentleman and then make sure that it is something that comes into fruition. So what I would advocate, or what I would call on all of us, is to take advantage of the fact that this private member's bill has been laid in Parliament, and then increase the level of our advocacy such that we bring the conversation back into the national dialogue. I mean, there are a whole lot of things that goes on in the country. So in most cases, the very pressing issues that are critical to the most vulnerable is often overlooked. But I think once we take advantage of this and we garner all the support from the general public, from the international community, we will see this bill going through the various stages, and then it becomes policy. So I think for us, all of us here, and all those who are interested or who are concerned about this issue, it is important that we increase the volume of advocacy so that we are able to get the import duty removed. I mean, that is the first step that I think would help mitigate against some of these issues that women and girls are facing with regards to period poverty.
Thank you so much, Ebenezer, for sharing that. Transitioning from that idea about obstacles and with this period tax, I want to bring the question now back to Samuel or Precious. What obstacles, when you go visit the villages in different regions, both in Ghana and Nigeria, have you seen? What obstacles have been obstructing schoolgirls' access to menstrual hygiene products, as well as is there also like a lack of education for menstrual hygiene within these areas?
Okay, I think I can take that. So when I traveled to the northern part of Ghana, because where we actually operate is the northeast region of Ghana, and to be honest with you, educating girls on menstrual education was not really the plan. It was not really what we wanted to do when we started operating in the north. Our job there was to provide children with educational resources, organize literacy program, and then support them with furnitures. But I realized that there was when it comes to menstrual education, there was no education, there was no awareness, there was nothing like that. And I realized that because of that, participation and also school attendance was really low in the village. And the village is called Namimboku village, in located in the East Mamprusi district. School attendance when it comes like the girl child was really low because there was no education and awareness as regards to menstrual education. It was like they had like limited access to information. There was no information as regards to menstrual education. There was nothing like that, and that was where we started organizing programs to educate these teenagers as regards to menstrual health, menstrual education, and also provide them with sanitary pad. Now, the funny thing is, the last project we did was in August, and we were able to raise funds to buy I think about 16 cartons of sanitary pad that we took to the north. And when we're giving it to the girls, they thought it was biscuit. You know, like we're giving them the sanitary pad, and they were like, "Oh, Uncle Sammy came to give us biscuit." And when they've not used it before, and it was so sad that they do not like they don't even know that this is sanitary pad, because what they've been using is rag. They had no information as regards that, and that was like the major challenges that we face. And so what we started to do was to educate them, one village to another, educating them. And we also added it to the literacy program that we are also doing now. Another challenge has to do with financial constraints as well. Now we know that parts is really expensive, and the place that we operate in, parts is really expensive. And it's like when you buy pad in Accra, you buy pad for like 16 cities, 14 cities, right? But when you go to the north and you want to buy pad, they are selling pad for like 20 cities. 20 cities to buy pad. So which means that if a girl is seeing her period, how much does she have to buy sanitary pad? How much does she have? How much does she have to buy sanitary pad? They don't have that much money to buy pad, so they don't come to school because of lack of resources. Their parents don't have, so they don't have anything that they can use to get pad. That is why they opt out of school. They don't want to come to school. Most of them, they do like this free flow and stuff, and it also gets embarrassing too. because like I said, lack of information too. The boys too, when they see a girl that is seeing a period, they laugh at the girl because they too, they don't have the education. So it's like everybody in the village lack education. The mothers, the community leaders, the chief, the boys. And when you are talking about this, it's like you're talking like when you start talking about menstrual education, it's like you are talking a new thing. You are telling them a new thing. That's how bad it is. So the two major challenges that we actually faced there was financial constraint and also limited access to information. And that was what we started to do, educating them one after the other and ensuring that everybody, not just the girls, the boys too, are aware of what menstrual education is. Because once the boys are aware of what it means, then they can be able to relate with the girls properly and also correctly. And one other thing too has to do with like lack of facilities for the girl child too. They don't have like toilet for the girl child. Like now in Amiboku village, they lack toilets. So which means that if they want to use the restroom, they have to go to the bush. And most girls have actually complained that when they go to the bush, something like this insects and stuff, it's even to talk about it is really sad. So all of these things actually affect um, menstrual education in Northeast region where we actually operate in.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Samuel. I feel like education is really important, and the fact that menstrual hygiene education there is very surprising and brand new to both the girls and boys in those schools is very surprising. But at the same time, it does surround and explain why the stigma still does occur, not just in Ghana, but all around the world too. So leading from that question, this is for Lady Juliet. What type of menstrual hygiene education workshops do you believe could really educate girls on their hygiene rights, but also educate boys and communities and families on how to eliminate that stigma surrounding periods?
Can I get that again?
Yes. So the question is, what type of menstrual hygiene education workshops do you believe could educate girls on their hygiene rights, along with educating boys and families on how to not have the stigma surrounding periods?
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, I believe that for menstrual hygiene education, it should be an all-inclusive thing. If we really want it to work, then it should be an all-inclusive thing, and it should also cover all areas. So we should look at it from different angles, and then about the intersection with education, we should look at it with even when they go home, how their parents approaches. A lot of parents in Ghana, even the mothers, have noticed that they feel that I did not get any education on this and I survived. So why can't you survive? And that's the mentality that most of these mothers carry. Like, they don't even want you to talk about mental health. They don't seem to relate with it. They just don't understand. Like, why would you feel down because somebody teased you? Why would you feel down because you were mocked for staining yourself? Like, get over it. They can't seem to understand why that should affect your academics, why that should affect you staying in class or even participating and being very active in class. So I feel that it should be an all inclusive thing where parents are educated on the need for it, and then also where teachers are taught on mechanisms to, curb this period stigma, because I feel like sometimes these teachers are enablers. Imagine what I shared earlier, the girl told us that the teacher actually beat her in front of the class for being 30 while she had just stained herself. And that was the first time menstruating. She didn't even know what it was, but she was beaten up in front of the whole class. So, in that case, this teacher is like enabling the stigma attached to it. So, I feel like as educators, as teachers, we need to take them through how they should um they should address issues like these, how they can help to curb these stigmas, and then how they can help curb period poverty, and how they can also help us to spread education. Because if we just target the girls, well, the girls are going to be fine, but then what about the boys who mock them? What about the teachers who are going to beat them? What about the parents who refuses to buy these sanitary products for them? So I think it should be an all-inclusive thing, and then also we should also be able to be more innovative about period products. Because I think that initially when we're using the disposable pads, that has been the thing, especially in Ghana. That's what is widely used, and that's very costly now. But now there's the introduction of reusable pads, which is more sustainable and less affordable as compared to using the disposable pads. Because um there are some of the reusable pads that you could use in a cloth form that can sustain you for about a year. So we should be more innovative around this and be very accommodating towards it. There are tampons, there are different things to use. So we should try to make people very open-minded about this thing, because I'm not going to exempt myself. I was given a tampon once and I just looked at it and said, no, 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 no. I think this is not going to be comfortable, so I'm not going to use it. I was given a reusable pad and I said, I don't think I would want to see myself washing my blood, so I'll stick to the disposable pad. But I think we should also be more innovative around period products, especially sustainable ones that people can afford or even produce themselves, like the reusable pads, if we really want to see like a long-term impact.
Thank you so much, Lady Juliet. I definitely agree. More innovative period products that can be sustainable and also like handmade, so that they're more affordable for girls and women, will definitely increase access and decrease the stigma that surrounds periods. And from that question, this is for Ebenezer. In your opinion, how do you think advocacy around like the period tax, on top of, you said like that private member of parliament has been working on like his or her own bill, how do you think people in the communities of Ghana, but also around the world, can help create more advocacy projects on period poverty?
Okay. So first off, I would touch on the private members bill, since that is more or less the surest way of really getting some sort of national policy that touches on period poverty in the country. And so, as it has been drafted and it's being presented to Parliament, organizations that have an interest in period poverty could take advantage of that, and then, increase the advocacy, as I said. And the interesting thing is that this member of parliament is very open. He is someone who opens his doors to, a lot of people in the society. So it is quite easy to get in touch and then, follow up with him and see how best even organizations could chip in and then even have a review of the bill or something like that. And then moving from that as well, community-wide, I think there hasn't been enough information about the problem. There hasn't been enough information about the problem. So that again, it falls on organizations or foundations that are interested in this work to make sure that the awareness creation is done as often as possible in a sustained manner. If it is done as a one-off thing, I think the other speakers would attest, those who are familiar with the culture of, policy awareness and things in Ghana will tell you that, Ghana, once the issue comes and you talk about it, you give it 1 week and then it dies off. But no, something as critical as this shouldn't die off in just a week. And so there has to be that level of sustained advocacy. And in this area, what I would also advise from a strategic point of view would be collaboration between the various organizations to have that sustained advocacy on period poverty. such that if you have a project that touches on menstrual hygiene, for instance, you could have that collaboration between various organizations and then look at the various components that they could chip in, because in the civil society domain, resources are limited. And so it is very critical that you have that level of partnership between and then amongst yourself, so that we would have that level of awareness creation. And like the other speakers have said, it is important that we start a conversation at the grassroots, from the homes, through the schools, through the religious institutions, and then we can have it at a community level and then a societal level as well. Once we have those conversations from the bottom up, I think a lot of these barriers that are present could be eliminated, because like they have said, in most cases, it has to do with some social taboos, some cultural things or perceived cares and stuff like that, especially in the Ghanaian context. And so if we're able to have very informed conversations with people at that level, then we can eliminate those barriers one after the other. Because without that, if we focus just on, the grand scale and then doing conversations, having webinars, for instance, this webinar, how many people who are really affected by the issues are part of this conversation? They would have loved to be part, but even having access to the information regarding it is even a problem. So for me, as someone who works with grassroots organizations, that is something that I see that we can use to, pump up the advocacy and then sustain the conversation on period poverty. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ebenezer, for sharing about the policy and how we can all work together to advocate upon this issue. So that will be our last question for today. So thank you all for joining us to learn and have this dialogue about period poverty and education. And I hope everybody has a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you.